The British Empire. How did a small island nation rise to rule over a quarter of the world's land and population? Stretching across centuries and continents, this empire shaped the legal, economic, and cultural framework of many regions worldwide. It's a tale of exploration, power, and the control, but also of the resistance, loss, and the decolonization. Here's a complete journey through the history of the British Empire, origins and early beginnings. The British Empire's roots go back to the late 1500s under Queen Elizabeth I's rule. In 1585, Elizabeth granted the Walter Raleigh permission to establish a colony on Roanoke Island, which is part of modern-day North Carolina in the United States. Although the Roanoke settlement failed and became known as the Lost Colony, this was the first of England's attempts to plant its influence overseas. Less than a generation later, in 1607, the British founded Jamestown in Virginia, establishing their first permanent colony in North America. But why was Britain so eager to expand? Other European nations like Spain and Portugal were amassing great wealth from their empires, with Spain controlling 80% of the world's silver after seizing colonies in Latin America. England wanted in on this wealth and began to realize the profits that overseas territories could bring. As they built their empire, a combination of political and religious motivations drove Britain to expand, especially through spreading Christianity and promoting British customs, expanding power across North America and the Caribbean. Through the 1600s, Britain's empire-building efforts intensified. Colonies in North America, like the 13 colonies, grew significantly in both population and economic importance. The British also turned to the Caribbean, establishing profitable sugar plantations that drove demand for enslaved labor. They seized islands like Jamaica and Barbados, turning them into hubs of sugar production, which became one of the most lucrative parts of their empire. However, by the mid-1700s, the 13 colonies in North America had grown resentful of British rule. Heavy taxes and the trade restrictions fueled a desire for independence, leading to the American War of Independence in 1775. By 1783, the war ended with Britain's recognition of the United States as an independent nation, signaling the loss of some of its most valuable colonies. But this defeat didn't weaken Britain's ambitions, it simply redirected them, turning towards Asia. After losing America, Britain shifted focus toward Asia, particularly India. Starting with the British East India Company's victory at the Battle of Plassey in 1757, Britain established significant control over the Indian subcontinent. By 1858, India was declared an official colony of the British Empire, known as the Jewel in the Crown. India's vast population and resources became essential for funding Britain's ongoing expansion and the Industrial Revolution. British rule in India, however, was often brutal and exploitative, with local industries and agriculture repurposed to benefit British economic interests, often at the expense of the Indian people. In India, British influence was accompanied by forced cultural assimilation, as English law, Christianity, and British systems of education were introduced. This imposition affected languages, traditional religions, and ways of life in profound and lasting ways. Even today, English remains a dominant language in many former British colonies, including India. The Great Game and the Scramble for Africa. As the 19th century progressed, Britain's imperial ambitions drove it into competition with other European powers, particularly in Africa and Central Asia. The Great Game unfolded as Britain and Russia vied for dominance in Central Asia, with each side eager to expand its influence. At the same time, Europe's scramble for Africa was underway, with Britain emerging as a dominant player by the 1880s technological advancements and military supremacy. With wealth pouring in from the colonies, Britain developed advanced technology and infrastructure that cemented its dominance. Railways and new machinery allowed faster transportation and production of goods. India was the first colony to see British railway technology, drastically reducing the time to transport goods from inland regions to ports for export. This technology eventually spread across other colonies, strengthening British control over trade routes and the economies of its territories. Challenges from rising powers and world wars. As the 20th century dawned, Britain's position was no longer as secure. New economic powerhouses like Germany and the United States started to rival Britain. This tension contributed to the build-up toward World War I, where Britain relied heavily on its empire for resources, soldiers, and support. Despite achieving its largest territorial size following the war, Britain faced new limitations. The cost of maintaining control became increasingly high, and economic dependence on the empire began to weaken. In the World War II, Britain's colonies in East and Southeast Asia were invaded by the Japanese. Despite eventual victory, the British economy was severely weakened, and colonial territories saw Britain's vulnerability firsthand. Calls for independence became louder, with movements gaining momentum across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. The road to independence and the empire's end. After the war, decolonization accelerated as Britain lacked the resources or support to maintain its empire. In 1947, after years of struggle and protest, India achieved independence, setting off a wave of decolonization across the globe. Over the following decades, former British territories from Asia to the Caribbean secured their independence, while Britain gradually shifted from an empire to a member of the global Commonwealth. One major blow to Britain's global prestige was the Suez Crisis in 1956. This conflict revealed Britain's declining status as a superpower and highlighted its dependency on the United States. The final symbolic end to the empire came with the handover of the Hong Kong to China on July 1, 1997. Today, only 14 overseas territories remain under British sovereignty. The Commonwealth and legacy of the British Empire. Even after the empire ended, Britain's legacy lives on. Many of the former colonies chose to join the Commonwealth of Nations, an association promoting shared values and cooperation. While independent, 15 Commonwealth countries, including the United Kingdom, still recognize the same monarch, currently King Charles III, as head of state. British laws, language, and culture continue to influence many regions worldwide, for better or worse, as countries navigate their histories of colonization and self-rule. What does the British Empire's history mean today? The empire's effects are still felt in modern legal systems, languages, and societal structures, with debates around reparations, historical accountability, and cultural impact ongoing in former colonies. So if you found this journey through the British Empire insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep exploring history together, one story at a time.